The Time of the Daleks, the 32nd Big Finish main range release for Doctor Who, first released in 4 parts across CD and download on the 21st of May 2002, and written by Justin Richards. This is also the 4th part of the Dalek Empire storyline, which started with the Genocide Machine, went through the Apocalypse element, and the last entry before this one was the Mutant phase. The Time of the Daleks sets to add an ending to the Dalek Empire storyline. The 8th Doctor, voiced by Paul McGann, he holds William Shakespeare in quite high regard, regarding him as one of the greatest playwrights of all time. Of course, the 10th Doctor would eventually go on to meet William Shakespeare proper, played by Dean Lennox Kelly, in Series 3's The Shakespeare Code. However, his companion, Charley Pollard, voiced by India Fisher, doesn't seem to hold Shakespeare in quite as high regard. In fact, she's never heard of him. Which isn't because of a substandard education. Turns out Shakespeare is seemingly disappearing from history. Like, some people remember him, some people don't. So the Doctor and Charlie set out to find out why, eventually ending up in the not-too-distant future, where General Maria Learman, voiced by Dot Smith, is ruling over Britain. She's ruled over it since the Euro Wars. And she, along with some of her cohorts, including Major Ferdinand, the head of security, voiced by Julian Harries, her niece, Viola Learman, voiced by Nicola Boyce, and a kitchen boy, voiced by Jem Bassett, they're aiming to build a time machine so that they can go back and witness the first ever recorded performance of a Shakespeare play, or the earliest one they could find, that being Julius Caesar. However, because of the Euro Wars and because of how Learman came into power, she does also have rebel forces massing against her, including a man named Priestley, who's the leader of the rebel forces, voiced by Mark MacDonald, and Hart, voiced by Lee Moon. There's also Professor Osric, voiced by Ian Brooker, who is helping them build their time machine and is using Heisenberg's uncertainty principle in order to do it. Now, one thing to quickly mention about the cast is that it does include 2 actors, Nicola Boyce and Mark MacDonald, who previously appeared in the previous Doctor Who Big Finish story I reviewed, that being Embrace the Darkness. But here they play completely different characters. It's just nice to have a little bit of, maybe they were just around in the studio and recording 2 stories on the same day. But the Doctor soon discovers something much more sinister than people just trying to get back to watch a Shakespeare play, because Maria Learman has allied herself with the Daleks. And that's a problem. Now, at first, the Daleks seem to legitimately... It seems at first as though the Daleks legitimately want to help them get back and preserve the works of Shakespeare. Likewise, they believe Shakespeare is one of the greatest playwrights of all time. But then it seems like they mainly want to use this time travel technology in order to kind of escape from time problems of their own. As when the Doctor asked them how they ended up with this, they admit that they had found out all of the knowledge that they needed from La Cherat, which is, of course, the planet that the 7th Doctor and Ace visited in the Genocide Machine. So I do like how the Dalek Empire story does eventually tie back together. So it's a race for the Doctor, Charlie, and everyone to find a way to set time right, whilst also trying to foil the Daleks' plan, as they want to use the time travel technology to essentially gain control of Earth. And while General Maria Learman at first says that she just wants to go back and watch a Shakespeare play, she soon reveals her bigger plot, which is that she does want to essentially erase Shakespeare from history, but she wants to be the only one who remembers it, believing that she is the only person who can actually appreciate Shakespeare's genius, and so therefore she wants to be the only one to remember it in her mind, which does actually lead to... Sorry, spoiler alert. It does actually lead to a rather humorous bit where the Daleks, I think, end up turning her into a Dalek, and so you got a Dalek quoting Shakespeare, which, I don't know, it's rather surreal. I mean, we know from later on with Asylum of the Daleks and The Magician's Apprentice that humans can become Daleks, or humans can be sealed inside Dalek shells, like they did with Clara. But yeah, just having a Dalek just quoting Shakespeare lines. It was weird, but at the same time oddly entertaining. Also, supposedly Don Warrington pops up once again here as Rassilon. I don't remember hearing him in this story. I definitely know that he does appear earlier on in this series, and he did appear later on. In fact, the next story I'm due to review is Neverland, so he'll probably show up there. But I don't know. I don't necessarily think I heard him in this particular story, but it does end on a quite weird note for Charley, because one of the they used in this story a particular clock, or a piece of clock technology, in order to kind of get everything together, and also mirrors that story. But then the Doctor reveals that the clock's useless. I mean, okay, yes, it's still good at telling time, but it holds no basis in the experiments, and that the actual piece that was allowing them to travel through time portals and the light was Charley, to which Charley, by the end of the story, is left feeling a little confused and a little scared, and that if she was the thing that allowed them to time travel, then what's wrong with her? What's going on? And that, of course, leads into the final big story of this particular series of 8th Doctor Adventures, Neverland. And that's the one that I'm due to review next. So overall, I think The Time of the Daleks is a pretty fun story. It's a pretty good ending to the Dalek Empire story, and it provides some really good storylines. There's also another small thing that, if you don't want it spoiled, skip this. The kitchen boy actually turns out to be a young William Shakespeare, and that Viola had previously rescued him, skipped him out, and that's partially why people are forgetting him, because he's out of his own time. But it's nice to see them kind of building up the framework of how this kid will eventually become one of the greatest playwrights of all time. So as I said, The Time of the Daleks. Go and listen for yourself and make your own decision on it. I think it's pretty fun. Alright, until next time, see ya.